Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Allison.
And this is Queer Cinema Catch-Up, the podcast where we talk about movies, TV, and miscellaneous topics through a queer lens.
And
today is a very special episode.
Because we're on location
in
Chicago, and we are truly looking out at Lake Michigan. And it's extra special because we have two surprise guests with us.
And they are...
Hi, I'm Caroline.
And who are you, Caroline?
Oh, I'm Allison's sister.
And I'm Will.
And who are you?
I'm your friend.
Thank goodness we clarified that.
So today's going to be an interesting episode because not only do we have special guests here with us, but we are not in Hollywood right now. We are sitting in Rogers Park near Lake Michigan, as Allison already said, on location. So you might hear people walking in the background. You might hear the wind. You might hear the trees. You might hear the cicadas. You might hear the snaps of twigs.
The crinkle of our baguette bag.
The sound of cheese.
Being spanked. Naughty Gouda.
You know what's really amazing is these microphones. They actually were born here in...
They were born?
in Evanston, to be exact.
Oh my gosh, yes they were!
I ordered them
Their mother is.
with my grant from my MFA program, and they made their way to California, and now Joe has transported them back to Chicago, and I'm sure they're confused.
Wow, it's a return home in multiple ways.
And then they have to go back to California, these poor guys. This is Allison.
And Joe.
We're back in Los Angeles because we were just very enthusiastic in Chicago and going into great detail, and we didn't get all the way through the movie.
So we'll be bouncing back and forth between Chicago and LA talking about a very special movie.
And I'm going to let our past selves tell you what that movie is.
Today we are talking about the new movie,
Maxine.
which is part of a quadruple.
A trio.
Trilogy.
I thought there was a fourth one.
Well, we're not sure about
We're not
that.
sure.
Quadruple, is that actually a thing?
I think it's quadrilogy.
Oh, that's really
Oh,
good.
yeah.
Is that Alien?
What's also special about this episode is Will, Allison, and I saw Maxine, but Caroline has not seen the movie. So we're going to talk and describe it to her in detail, and she's going to react.
I have an idea, Caroline. Tell us what you think the movie Maxine is about, based on the conversation from this weekend and just your general reaction to the name.
In depth listening to you guys talk about the movie, like a Hollywood star lady, or maybe like a wannabe, her struggles. That's what I thought.
Do you like scary movies?
More thriller, I guess I would say, or suspenseful than like gory scary.
Oh.
Will, do you like scary movies?
I love scary movies.
Do you want to give the synopsis really quick?
Sure. Maxine is about a adult film star who is determined to become a crossover movie star where everyone on the planet knows her name, and she believes she has the talent to do it. And she has finally scored her first role in a horror film. She believes that she has made it, but the issue is that the Night Stalker is out and about in Los Angeles, stalking and murdering women. This is set in the 80s. And at the same time, she's receiving strange, threatening messages that seem to be hinting at a crime Maxine has committed in the past, which viewers who've seen other movies in this quadrilogy will know what that is. I had not seen the movie, so I did not know what the crime was, but I intuited it from the film.
Amazing. Will, could you actually just read off the cast really quick?
Mia Goth as Maxine Minx. Elizabeth Debicki as Elizabeth Bender, Moses Sumney as Leon, Michelle Monaghan as Detective Williams, Bobby Cannavale as Detective Torres, Halsey as Tabby Martin, Lily Collins as Molly Bennett.
Lily Collins, like Emily in Paris?
Yes.
Is it supposed to be called Emily in Perry? Like, so it rhymes?
No.
I think so.
That's what I thought it was supposed to be called, because it's like Emily in Perry.
That would
I mean,
make
I
it more
guess if you're using
interesting.
it with
That was a
That's
burn.
saying with the accent.
Right. Giancarlo Esposito as Teddy Knight, Simon Prast as Ernst Miller, Sophie Thatcher as an FX artist. That's literally what it says.
That's crazy.
And that's what you missed on Glee.
So Maxine is the third movie in what so far is a trilogy. There's X, there is Pearl, and now there's Maxine. It kind of ties in with our friend Will because I saw X with Will.
And I saw Pearl with Will, but I did not see X with Will. And Joe did not see Pearl with Will. And this is an algebra problem.
That was.
Who saw which movie with who?
So I'll do a quick and dirty plot description of X.
Which came out in 2022. Go.
A group of filmmakers in the 70s go to this small rural town to make a pornographic movie. And the hosts turn out to be very scary older people.
And Mia Goth plays the young, ambitious
Maxine.
and The old lady
Pearl. And I think when I saw the movie, I didn't realize that Mia Goth played both characters. And when I watched this with Will, I was really tired. And there's a really funny picture that Will took of me during the movie that looks like I'm glaring at the television. But it was a combination of me being disgusted with the film, but also really exhausted. So it looks like I'm really judgmental. But really, it's because I was really tired and also kind of judgmental.
To piggyback on your not judgment, I actually was being very judgmental because when Will suggested we watch that movie.
Weren't you here?
Yes. And he said, it's about porn stars. And I was like, okay. And he's like, old people porn stars. And I was like, you know what? Bye.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm not watching that.
You already have a hard enough time with porn.
I was like, I can't. But I actually think you might be misremembering because I read this article that said it was 4 young, this sounds so similar to what you just said, 4 young filmmakers desperate for fame who kind of get conned into making this pornographic movie and get trapped in these people's house. And then the Pearl lady has like a plot to murder them all. And then Maxine is the only one who survives and she ends up killing Pearl to escape.
Mm-hmm.
Which, when I read that, I was like, wait, that sounds great. Why wasn't I watching it?
I just remember it being really like dark. It's like a very like grindhouse film, and like I'm not really a Texas Chainsaw Massacre type fan. And I listened to an interview today with Ty West, and he was like, yes, I pay an homage to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but while it looks stylistically like it, there's a lot of differences in it. This interview's on the Big Picture podcast, and the main guy, Sean, was theorizing. He was like, I don't know if X would become the cult movie that it became without Pearl.
Well, Pearl, I loved. Did I see Pearl after you had already seen X?
Yes. Which is why I was not interested. When I heard, I had to work or something that day anyway when you saw it with Will. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I don't give a shit because I did not like X at all.
I remember being like nervous because of the X, but the premise seemed more interesting. Like it was just a young farm girl in the 50s who really wanted fame and then turns murderous as a result.
Well, but I'm confused because it was during World War I. Was it the 1910s? No.
Can't be.
I don't want to believe it.
1918. A young woman on the brink of madness pursues stardom in a desperate attempt to escape the drudgery, isolation, and lovelessness of life on her parents' farm. You know, that is something I really liked about Pearl, is that this woman, Mia Goth, she's a woman on the edge. She is tipping over into crazy. This man comes into her life, promises her that she can be famous, and she like is so naive she believes it. But then he kind of like goes home and sees how weird she is and like tries to like leave. And do you remember the part where she's like, what'd I do wrong? Like she's just so crazy, and then she just goes on a murderous rampage. So she's definitely insane. But they do a really good job of like sketching in the beginning how horribly difficult, sad, and cruel her life is. That you see why she's so obsessed with fame.
Yeah. See, this movie is much more interesting to talk about than X.
Okay, you know what? It is really good.
And if I were to rank the movies, Pearl at the top, then Maxine, and then X.
Okay. I saw a lot of criticism out there that was saying Maxine is the worst one.
Yeah, that was kind of the general feedback.
But you disagree.
I just didn't like X.
Okay, I feel like I haven't seen X, but I feel like I would feel the same way. Pearl was so good. Like I came out of that movie ecstatic. I was like, oh my gosh, that was a fantastic movie. But Maxine, I really liked.
A few years ago when I was living at my old place, I had my own little Brian De Palma film festival by myself at the house. Brian De Palma, he has done Scarface, The Untouchables. Well, let me relate to this more. He's done Carrie, Blowout, Dress to Kill, and Body Double, which all, if they're not sets in LA, I believe that Body Double is definitely set in LA. They are all pretty much Hitchcockian style slasher films. Like they kind of have like a elevated cinematic experience to them while also being kind of like grimy and popcorny, but he's got like a filthy Hitchcock.
Oh, a filthy Hitchcock.
And I just remember especially liking Dress to Kill and Body Double just because Body Double, I think, pulls a lot from Vertigo, actually.
Oh, makes sense in terms of the title. You've mentioned Body Double to me before.
Probably. But yeah, I think Ty West pulled a lot from these ones. And then Sean from the Big Picture podcast compared it to Vice Squad and Angel, which are kind of like older Hollywood films.
I'm curious how I'd like these films because like you say something like Scarface, my bias is like
Pretend I didn't say Scarface.
Okay, but
because Scarface doesn't match
the rest
Maxine.
of them.
The other ones I feel like match.
Because I just feel like Maxine, there's something about, and maybe Pearl too, like the emotional story feels really clear to me. And then the stakes are high. Sure, there were things I didn't think were perfect in this film, but I just feel engaged. Like I'm watching, you know?
My disappointment with Maxine is I wish that Hollywood was more of a character than
it was.
It was.
I mean, I felt like the studio part, there's a chase scene through one of the studio lots.
Yeah.
That I felt like was awesome.
But there's still something, as I always say, about these big movies feeling small.
Yeah.
And it's just never going to return. But it's like, I feel like I really notice, and I don't know if I just am aware of it now more often, but I can just see, they're like, okay, we have this day, we're going to have so many extras on set. But all these other days, we can't afford to have extras. So we're going to have a completely empty lot.
I don't know. I've never really been on a lot where they're filming, but I imagine it is kind of empty.
This is going to be so hard to bounce between our present conversation in Chicago, because now I just want to continue talking and not.
I mean,
bounce
we can just like hit on the romance. We'll figure it out. Go back to Chicago with us. Let's hear what our Chicago past selves. And when I say past selves, I mean ourselves from 5 days ago. And we're going to kind of break down the beginning of this movie scene by scene with our friends and sister. When we're done, we'll kind of catch up in the present, talk about a few of the themes we explored a little bit in more depth, and maybe like
whatever the hell we want to talk about.
Yeah, we're in control now. So go back to Chicago, get on that plane. See, you get a taxi from O'Hare, and you
What do you say?
to Rogers Park.
You get in that taxi.
You do not stop for Pequods.
No hot dogs.
The lake looks nice. You can't go for a dip. You got to find us on the shore. And you join Joe, Allison, Caroline, and Will. Okay. So bye for now.
That was insane. So the plot we will now describe to you in detail.
Should we each like try to describe a scene, and then each time we describe a scene, Caroline reacts?
Yeah, but I think we can jump into any time and correct someone.
Of course, this is a freewheeling space.
Okay, scene 1. I believe it's a black and white scene of a young girl, and she's hearing a sermon.
Kinda. Would you agree, Will?
More of like a home video, I think.
It's a little girl singing.
Yeah.
And then someone you realize is her father saying off camera, "Great job, you're going to be a star. Now say this with me. What do we always say?
I will not accept the life I don't deserve.
I will not accept a life I do not deserve."
There you go.
And that is maybe the character we're about to meet's ethos in life. Caroline,
About a
thoughts?
sermon? Circle back about.
There was no sermon.
Oh, okay. So it's a girl.
Wasn't it clearly religious
Yeah,
undertones?
she was like-
I mean, he said something like, "You're going to be the star of the church."
Are they in church?
No, they're on like
Wow.
a little country.
It looks like they're like under a tent, like one of those like white outdoor tents
Like
where you
almost-
kind of like a pop-up church.
Okay, and
Like
is
a
it in black
circus.
and white?
Yeah.
The whole movie, like
No.
Oh, just this scene, the opening scene.
Yeah. Will, what was scene 2?
Scene 2.
It's a soundstage.
One of the sexiest scenes in all of movie history.
This scene should have just been the entire trailer. You see a soundstage door slowly open, and these are massive, giant, like, hangar doors. And Maxine Minx walks in, and she struts her stuff all the way to the audition room. And she sits down, and the door slowly closes behind her. Then she does her audition, and they're like, "You're Maxine Minx. You're big name in adult film." She's like, "Yes, I am. Did you always want to be in adult film?" She's like, "No, but I always want to be famous."
Is that like her voice sounds? Yeah.
She's very like Southern Belle, like, well, I don't know Southern Belle.
Just think lower class.
The casting director, the director is there, and the
Yes.
casting director is like, "Do you need your sides?"
And she says, "I know the lines."
And then this was also in the trailer.
And she does the monologue.
And the casting director's like, reads the stage line. It's something like, the woman comes into the room and through her trauma directly addresses the camera. And then she gives a monologue about the devil is within her and is going to make her do horrible things. And
This
she
is the
doesn't-
monologue.
Yes, and she
Okay.
doesn't know how to stop it. But the devil is inside of her.
What is she auditioning for? Did we say?
It's
We
like
don't know yet, but it's applied like through her monologue. You're like, "Oh, it must be some horror
a
film."
horror film.
Okay.
Her performance, like while she's doing the monologue, tears are like filling in her eyes. Like she's like very effective, and I thought it was like very convincing. I interpret it to be like a very good audition.
Agreed.
And I think the most striking part of it was she was crying, and she ends it, and she goes, "All right." Like she
And
just
like
immediately
snaps out of it
snaps. Yeah.
completely. Okay.
Immediately after she reads her lines, then the casting director is like, "All right, now show us your boobs."
Oh, yeah.
She unbuttons her shirt.
She's very unbothered by it.
They said she was an adult film star, so I'm sure she's used to.
Correct.
Unfortunately,
Exactly.
that.
And she walks out of the room, and she walks in front of all the other girls who are lined up to
Yeah.
read for the part. And she goes, y'all better go home because I just booked
Oh
that.
my god,
That was pretty great.
And then she gets like in her Porsche or whatever that has the license plate that says Maxine,
And that's the title card.
because all the credits are rolling before it. It's directed by Ty West. It's set in like the late 80s, and the production design in this movie is so
Stunning.
well done.
really?
Okay, when we say that, what do you think of when you hear production design?
The aesthetic, how it looks,
Yeah.
and all that, like the set design, the costumes, everything. Right? I could be wrong, but that's
You're
what I'm
right.
assuming. Okay.
Production design is mostly like set and set dressing.
Outfits too, like the stiletto heels that she's wearing, I feel like is very specific to that time period. That's
And
kind
her
of like
jean
her
outfit.
jeans, like a vest.
That was made of jean that tucked into her
Do you know
jeans.
where it was filmed?
Hollywood,
Hollywood.
baby.
Hollywood, of course.
It was kind of ironic, like
Oh yeah, we didn't even say where we watched this.
in Chicago.
Downtown Chicago.
And it was kind of felt a little like wrong.
I loved it. It was exciting.
Where's the other cheese?
Where's my cheese?
This is the Merlot cheese. Should we do a smell test on this cheese?
Yes, please. It almost has like a Parmesan smell to it. Genuinely.
It's
almost like-
It is like a sharper Parmesan-y cheese.
Absolutely. Do you know what this reminds me of? Passing that around. The sweaty balls.
No one can resist.
Mhm. And when did you start making your sweaty balls?
Oh, thank you for sharing your sweaty balls with us.
All right.
Now Maxine's going to her day job.
No, don't we cut to Satanic Panic?
When Maxine, the title comes up on the license plate,
Yeah.
it cuts to a series of images that characterize Hollywood in the 80s, including things like protests outside of studios for, immorality and movies and entertainment corrupting the youth, which is interesting 'cause I feel like there's a similar narrative today. And then images of Satanic Panic news clips, which is a thing that happened back
Big
then.
in the 80s.
Back in the 80s, where for some reason they thought there were satanic cults all around. There was actually a big thing in psychology where these kids would testify and say that they had been exposed to satanic rituals, but they were all actually false memories because the psychologists that interviewed them had kind of been too suggestive and, oh, have you ever seen anything like this? And the kids would be like, yeah. And so there was this big satanic panic thing that was happening.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, actually, it's very interesting. Blah, blah, blah.
That's going to become a theme of this movie.
Perhaps. It's something to be aware of and a few other things, but it's a montage, if you will.
It just seems like they're kind of painting a picture of what Hollywood 80s was like.
But this is also where the idea of the Night Stalker gets introduced.
Yes.
I thought she goes to the place at work. She sees a man and woman are having sex. So she's like at a porn studio. She goes to the back room, does a lot of coke out of a giant jar. And then her friend that was just on the set comes out and says, I'm getting invited to a party tonight.
In the hills.
And then that's when it talks about the stalker or the night stalker or whatever.
I think it's happening as she's walking. They're showing these clips.
They call him the Night Stalker, this
Yes.
person?
Is that now? Okay, I have a question about this. The Night Stalker.
That was
That's
a real person,
right?
yes.
Okay, so it was a real serial killer on the loose that was
Really?
murdering women.
Yeah. Are you morbidly curious about murderous stories?
Isn't everybody these days? But yes, I definitely am. Totally into the podcast of serial killers and all that kind of stuff. True crime, all that.
The podcast of serial killers. The
I won't
Which
name
one?
drop- I won't name drop any.
Okay, so the Night Stalker, better known as Richard Ramirez, was an American serial killer and sex offender whose killing spree occurred in the greater Los Angeles and San Francisco Bay Area. From April 1984 to August 1985, Ramirez murdered at least 14 people during various break-ins, with his crimes usually taking place in the afternoon, leading to him being dubbed the Night Stalker, the Walk-In Killer, and the Valley Intruder.
Whoa.
He was sentenced to death in 1989 and died while awaiting execution in 2013.
How?
Cancer. In between that, he married somebody in 1996, Doreen Leoy. So while he was on death row, he met somebody, fell in love, married them. I don't think they have any children together.
Was it like one of those people who was like writing into the prisoners? Like, they yeah.
And so there were fans who were writing him letters.
It's creepy.
See?
In the 80s. In 1988, he proposed to one of his fans, and they were married in 1996. For many years before Ramirez's death, his wife stated that she would commit suicide when Ramirez was executed.
Did she?
Did she?
No. Liar.
So we learn about this Night Stalker. Again, it's just really good at showing, not telling. Of Maxine's clearly trying to pursue a job in what they would describe as classy film instead of,
Hollywood.
trying to pursue a Hollywood star career. Oh, there's also a quote at the beginning of the movie of Betty Davis.
Yes. We should look up the quote. In this business, until you're known as a monster, you're not a star.
Caroline, what do you think?
that quote really reminded me of Taylor Swift.
I'm confused by that actually, because in my mind, I think you're supposed to lean into the monster identity in order to succeed.
Well, I think it's like a persona too. Like you
Yes.
have to put that persona on, and if you're gonna have haters and
I see what
buy
you're saying.
into that
what you're
and become what people want you to become.
But I will say, in context of the movie, I don't quite see how it applies.
It doesn't
to be
really
honest,
apply actually, unless it's a hint to what
to what really happened. That
What-
won't be revealed until later.
yeah, what eventually happens in the following movie. You're right. It doesn't really apply. Wow.
I also did some research on what the fourth movie could be, and apparently this is the end of the MaXXXine trilogy, but there might be another film in that universe, which doesn't make sense because this film feels more like a second movie than a trilogy capper.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So Maxine's at work. She stored a lot of coke. We don't see her go out and do her job, right? It cuts to the next scene.
I thought that she goes to the video store.
yeah. Oh
Say
yeah,
that,
yeah. Oh,
okay.
the video store.
Where she meets her friend, who's perhaps coded gay character. They don't really say, but it's implied. And that's when she tells him, name 3 people who got their start in horror movies. And
Yes.
he goes, Jamie Lee Curtis. Who else?
The model. We watched a documentary on her.
Brooke Shields.
Brooke Shields.
But he said, but that was after.
Oh.
Then she goes, she names 3 people, and then she interrupts him and goes, and Maxine Minx, because I just got cast in a horror film.
Doesn't she say motherfucking Maxine?
Yeah.
She said, and Maxine fucking Minx.
Yes.
And he's like, oh, that's great. And she's like, I'm going to be a crossover star just like Brooke Shields. And then her friend says, her friend, who just says a lot of mean things to her, goes, I don't think Brooke Shields ever was in porn.
He's kind of our media illiterate character in the movie. He's the one who really understands. I feel like he was underutilized though.
I think so
definitely.
too. But then she goes, well, she still took her clothes off and is a big star.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of characters in this film that get
Underutilized. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The detectives included.
It's almost like they were all characters in a little movie. Do you know what I'm saying? Because the whole thing's about like a murder or crime, and it almost feels like there were these like archetypes baked in.
Yeah.
But then we didn't get to see them a lot, and maybe that's part of the point.
Yeah. But I just liked them so much. I wanted to see
I know.
more.
No, I liked them too. Okay. So that was a good scene. But then she goes to work, and her second job is to be a kind of like what we saw in Amsterdam, Caroline, the red light district, the people that dance in the window. Oh. She's doing that in an interior space, being watched.
Where you go into like this room, you put in a quarter in a slot, and then a curtain pulls up, and there's like an exotic dancer privately dancing for you.
Is that technically like a peep show? Is that what that?
Yeah, that is.
Okay.
Because I think the ones in Amsterdam too, like they are actually, you can do
Well,
more
yeah.
than that too.
I mean, I think she
just point that out there. Yeah.
True.
It opens, and Maxine's wearing kind of a black bob. She kind of looks like the woman from Chicago.
Why is it like in Pretty Women? Julia Roberts did that too. Why do all like stereotypical prostitutes have to wear like a wig in movies? I just don't understand that.
I don't know.
I just think that in movies specifically, they want to give them a really transformative wig that maybe they wouldn't traditionally wear in real life, but just really like show you like they are putting on a character.
Distinction between their real selves and who they're being.
Absolutely.
And so while Maxine's seductively dancing, it cuts to the room in which this viewer is watching, but you don't see the viewer. All you see are gloves, and you hear just like the crinkly sound of the leather gloves.
you know what it's like?
What?
Miss Congeniality, where they never
Yeah.
show the villain.
Oh, yeah,
And they
it's
only
like-
just show her gloves. Kind of like that.
I love that movie. So the gloved person grabs onto like wooden railing attached to the window of the peep show, and the gloves are clutching the wood really hard, and it's like tightening and squeezing until it rips off the
Yeah.
wood.
Didn't you think that was going to have some kind of like relevance, like the way the clutching kept happening?
I do think the gloves kind of lost its.
Like, what was the point?
It was.
I guess just the vibe.
Well, because
I think it was to show the Night Stalker without showing his face.
but was that the
Yeah.
Night Stalker?
yeah,
Yes.
I mean it's.
Because they also have the person in the car has the gloves too, who is not the Night
I
Stalker.
thought he had brown
No.
gloves.
Are you talking about Kevin Bacon's character?
No,
Kevin Bacon.
the bad guy.
The bad guy?
What?
That guy was in the car with Kevin Bacon.
Correct, and that's the
That
Night
that's
Stalker.
the Night Stalker.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, at the very end of the movie, they say we caught the Night Stalker, and then they go, and in other news,
No, that was a fantasy. That didn't really happen.
no, you guys are wrong.
No, wait.
It cuts to an image of the Night Stalker, and it's not the man. It's a different person.
What do you mean?
I think it might be a sketch of the real Night Stalker in real life.
No, I'm thinking that there were 2 crimes happening concurrently. Because they
Oh.
even said he was mimicking the way the Night Stalker kills.
I missed all of that.
I definitely didn't catch that.
But it's all, I thought there's
And maybe it's open for interpretation, but I definitely think that was like the joke of it.
so we're at this peep show. We see
Yeah.
leather gloves.
You're supposed to think it's the Night Stalker.
We cut
no
to
matter
the
what.
interior of another car, and there's also leather gloves in there. So we're assuming that the person who was in the peep show is also in the back of this car.
No. The car scene's later, but I'm saying I don't know if the person who's watching is supposed to be the Night Stalker, who I think is the man that follows her down the alley, or is it supposed to be the actual bad guy who we later see talking to Kevin Bacon? They don't show his face, they do show his gloves. Every time we see that bad guy, we see the gloves.
Yeah.
I know.
You're saying this is concurrent?
Yeah, 2 murderers on the loose.
Okay, that was really lost on me. So peep show happens, and the next scene is the alley.
She talks to Halsey. They're leaving the
Oh,
theater,
they're leaving the peep show.
And she's like, thanks for waiting for me. I don't want to walk home alone with the Night Stalker on the loose. I'm going to a party in the hills.
But essentially, which was such an interesting thing to say, walk with me, I want to go a hot dog. I don't want anyone to see me eating.
Is that what she said?
Yes. So she's in line to get a hot dog on Hollywood Boulevard.
Hilarious.
They're in line, and that's kind of where more exposition comes in, where Holly's describing she's like been invited to this party, and then I think they're elaborating more on this like Night Stalker. Like,
yeah, she's going to the party in the hills. This is the second character we've heard mention that. And she wants Maxine to come. Maxine says no. She told her about the getting cast in a movie, and Halsey reveals that she also has big star dreams or whatever. And then Halsey's about to peel off, and she's like, be careful out there. The Night Stalker's around, and Maxine goes, I can handle myself. And then she goes, that's what every dead girl in Hollywood thinks. And then she, whoop.
Halsey says that?
Yeah. And then she goes off into the night to go to her party.
Is Kevin Bacon in this movie?
Yes.
So Maxine is taking a shortcut home, and she usually goes through this alleyway.
Her friend's like, be careful. And she's like, let me walk down this alley.
Yeah,
There's a
she's-
Night Stalker on the loose. Okay.
I mean, to be fair, if you live out there and you're like, this is an easy way to get home.
Oh, hell yeah.
Just do
yeah,
it.
you just do it.
I don't know about that.
I was like, as a woman,
lady.
I was going to say, I was
don't
just
know
kind of
about that.
agreeing, but I was kind of like, as a lady, yeah.
You're right.
I would say the more you get to know Maxine's character,
I mean,
though,
Maxine would do it.
Maxine
Yes.
would do this.
I was like, yeah, this is a character choice.
So she is walking down an alleyway. She has a gun in her purse. She's walking home. She gets through this alleyway. It is closed off. It is locked. And all of a sudden we see a figure behind her. And it looks like the Night Stalker. And so he has a switchblade and is walking toward her. And then she pulls out the gun on him. And he's like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I just wanted to like mess with you. I just wanted to play with you. We get the feeling that he might like assault her. And so she says to drop down on his knees.
Can I interject with,
Please.
as you talk with what the person next to us
Oh my
is
God.
doing? As
Well,
Will describes, I'm going to interject and do what the person sitting next to us is doing.
Oh, it's someone at the movie theater?
At the movie theater, sitting
Okay.
right next to Allison and I. She like holds the gun at like pelvic range, and she's like, "Suck," and he's like,
Damn.
"What?" And she says, "Suck on it."
On the gun?
On the gun.
That's so gangster.
That's what she
That's so
said?
gangster.
Oh, that's what the guy said.
What?
Yes.
Oh, gangster.
Who? What?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
He starts sucking on it like it's like.
What
you
choice
know.
did the man have?
At this point, I'm like, wow, she is going to like shoot this guy through the brains.
She said, do you want to know what happened the last time someone tried to kill me?
Very
so
telling.
that we know that she's had experience dealing with bad actors in the past.
And then
Did it do a quick flashback or something?
I think that starts happening after.
afterward, yeah, she starts having like these PTSD.
Because Maxine is also from the movie X.
The movie X.
The
yeah.
first one in this series.
Yes.
Was that scene meant to be bizarre, right? Like, that's weird. No one was expecting her to be like, suck it.
But
Well,
we're not done yet.
we're not done yet.
Okay.
She does not shoot him through the brain.
But of all the things to do, I guess
Because if he was
yeah.
about to sexually assault her, it's like she's
I get
doing the
that.
same thing
Yeah,
to him.
turn it around.
And saying
but-
this is what it's like to be afraid from
So,
a sexual violence point of view.
correct.
Fair.
So, I believe next she goes around, kicks him down, so he's now flat on his stomach. She takes the switchblade, I believe, and cuts open his pants
From the back or front?
from the back.
Okay.
And then proceeds to take her stiletto.
No.
We see a couple balls.
Well, first I thought she was going to have him like go ass up or something, and something was going to happen
I
there.
thought she was going to shove it in his ass.
Same.
Sodomize the
And
man?
bam,
Yeah.
like shoot him through the butt. Which also would have been no, it wouldn't have been equally as iconic.
Would that have been
as-
gangster?
I think that was just an inappropriate word to
most
use all around.
So we see his exposed balls.
That's it, though.
Because he's pushed to the ground.
So he's lying flat.
He's lying
They're really
flat.
just trying to demean this. I mean, he's
Yes,
a horrible person, so
exactly.
this villain, yeah.
And then she proceeds to take the heel of her stiletto and crush his balls.
Wow.
By stamping on them so hard that the skin breaks.
And you see all
and
of
we
this.
see testicles. Like the organs inside of the ball
Ew,
sack
that's
just
so-
exposed,
pop and break.
And all the men in the audience proceeded to audibly scream.
I have no words right now.
I'm not lying though when I say I've seen so many movies in my life and I've never heard a reaction like that, and it frankly disturbs me that is the most visceral reaction I've ever heard in my life.
I do think this is the scene from the film.
That is insane. Yeah.
I think.
Like the best scene?
No, like Hereditary.
That's
head.
what I'm trying.
It's like this is the scene.
Because my favorite scene, which we can get to later, is her discussion with the director. But that's a different kind of scene.
Yeah, that's like
It's like a
writing.
yeah.
Honestly, my
thematic.
favorite scene might have already happened where she just walks into the studio.
Well, yeah, that
so
that's stunning.
epic, just like brilliant entrance.
So far, I like when she was like, well, I got this role. Everybody go home. That's like so badass. Yeah.
All right, so
All right.
we now know that Maxine doesn't mess around. She knows how to fend for herself. Now it cuts to, is she back at her apartment?
Or is this when we start to see what's happening to Halsey in flashes?
Yes, we see a green door.
And Halsey is been honestly, I don't think we need to describe this part in detail, but basically
No.
it's a torture scene of the two women Maxine interacted with, who she works with, that we've seen in the beginning of the movie, are like tied up, gagged. It's not clear what's happening to them, but nothing good's gonna happen. They approach the screen door and there's someone behind there, and obviously it's not gonna end well. It's cut between that and Maxine at
It's
home.
supposed to be the same night that all that happened, like with the balls and all that. And
yeah.
so we don't know what happened to the Halsey character. She just ended up in
No,
this
we do.
position. Oh.
Also, the ball stomping guy. Did you guys recognize who he was?
No.
He was the Charlie Chaplin guy who's like out front on Hollywood Boulevard.
Oh, yes, because you know what she says to him.
Oh,
You know what she says to him while she's doing that? She calls him Buster. She goes,
Buster.
okay, Buster.
Who's Buster Keaton, who
Yeah.
Charlie Chaplin is not.
So does that mean that she misunderstood his costume? I think it
Whether
was
he
intentional.
she was like intentionally insulting him.
Yeah,
And he took it real
That's
personally.
That's like a layered joke.
I thought so.
I think so.
Which I
So
thought was
now-
pretty clever.
We see this really horrible torture scene, which I don't really enjoy watching in movies. And it then cuts to the next day, and that's when we're introduced to the detectives at the Hollywood Forever Memorial.
Yeah.
Which Allison and I have been to in the summer because they do outdoor movies there.
Yes.
And the two bodies that we saw previously have been washed up along the water. Their bodies exposed, and like an A.
No,
The
They die?
pentagram.
Yeah, the pentagram has been burned into them with they said a cattle prod. But one thing I really appreciated about this scene, even though it was disturbing, was how they really focused in on the Ruth Wilson character, who's the female cop, her like distaste and how disturbed she is. And then they also had these two like forensic guys there who were like, man, these like ladies were so hot.
Ew,
Objects
and
being
they were
like,
dead?
God, they're so hot. It's such a
Yeah.
shame.
That's so disturbing.
It's extremely disturbing. So now I feel like we're gonna have to maybe be a little bit more,
Generalized.
yeah, because it's gonna be hard to do. But I think what
do we
basically ends up
go
happening.
back to like the video store?
No, what happens next? Oh, it's important. She's with her friend at her apartment watching a movie, and her friend falls asleep, and there's a knock on her door. She opens the door, and there's somebody getting on the elevator, and there's a videotape
Yes.
lying out on the mat. And she puts it in, and it's her performing porn back from X when she was much younger. And I think this, in combination with probably the Night Stalker incident, kind of puts her into a bad headspace. And then the cops end up showing up.
Well, but then that's your least favorite part right there. Because her friend's asleep.
He does it later when she brings the video to him.
No, he was sleeping on the couch. They were watching a horror
I know,
movie
but
together.
it still happened later.
The VHS tape comes. She watches it. He's like, "What's that?" She's like, "Nothing." Then she stops the tape and then she walks to her bedroom.
Yeah, but later on, there was another part where she comes in very demanding, and she's like, "Can you figure out where this tape is from?" Like when he's in the video store, and she's like kind of rude, and then she like storms away, and that's when he says something I don't like.
Oh,
Something that I appreciate in both X and this is that Maxine does not have any romantic ties to anybody.
Her romantic tie was fame. Woo.
so then the next morning, the detectives show up.
Yeah, they try to talk to her when she's leaving.
Yeah.
maybe.
Oh, there's kind of a running joke between them two. Is Williams always almost gets Maxine to open up, and then Torres comes in, is kind of like
Yeah.
the bad cop character.
That's the
and then
boy.
the running joke is like Maxine like shuts down whenever Torres talks, and then Williams is always like, "God, like I was so close to getting her to open up, and you had to open your fucking mouth."
And the really funny part about it, the joke is that he wants to be an actor too, so he's like trying to perform like macho cop.
Yes.
And she's like, "Oh, you never would have made it as an actor. Like you
Oh
ruined
my God.
you
Yeah,
got her to
that's-
shut down again." That was really pretty funny. So then I guess she goes to set.
So then we meet a girl from Yellow Jackets.
Natalie, young Natalie.
Young Nat, I love her. She's a good actress.
So they're in the like costume department at the studio lot, and Maxine's sitting in a chair, and the Natalie character's walking Maxine through. She's like, okay, I'm going to pour this plaster on your head to get an outline of your face to make the dead head. That'll be at the end of the movie. It'll be a cast of your head. So they dump the plaster on Maxine's head. The plaster lady's like, okay, and I have to go grab something out back.
Which is ridiculous. You can't leave someone alone with that stuff on their head.
The first thing I just said, I'm like, and they're just gonna leave her alone?
Also, that plaster looked a little too watery.
It was like drooping off her nose.
It was freaky.
And so then this kind of plays into, in the alleyway, where it was like hinted at there were like bad actors in the past. She's kind of been shaken up by the detectives coming. Now she's pretty much like trapped and it's supposed to feel very claustrophobic. Now that she's like has this plaster on her, she starts freaking out. I was kind of surprised by the scene because I thought somebody was gonna come into the place and something suspicious was gonna happen.
Yeah.
But instead it was much more of a
Psychological.
person versus self situation where she was kind of fighting the demons within her. So then all of a sudden she starts rocking back and forth as she's panicking. Is it like kind of flashbacks of X, or is
Yes.
it okay? So it's showing like incidences of old lady Pearl walking through the house,
house? Is that what you
being
call
all
it?
the horror house, and Maxine falls backwards on her chair and is like basically trying to scream through her plaster
And to take it off of her face.
take it
at
off her.
that
She
point.
starts clawing at her face, digging off the goo, and it's like not coming out very fast. And then the plaster lady just like happens to come out as it's happening. She's like, oh my gosh.
Oh, I should never have left the room.
You know, it would have been more effective if the plaster had dried and she left, and then when it fell back, it broke off of her face.
Scary.
Oh.
I
But
kind of liked the
liked
image
this-
of like her.
Trying to like wipe it off and it still like wasn't coming off quite right.
Because
It was
made
really
me
freaky.
imagine like to feel it viscerally, you know? I was
That's
like, oh
true.
God. But honestly, I could see it both ways. And then she, I believe, goes to her car and there's a note on her car.
And she grabs it in a really obnoxious way.
I kind of liked how
She like
did
reached
it.
around. She turns on her windshield
Yeah,
wiper.
I loved
And then
it.
in one swift motion, she like reaches out and grabs it. I was like, how many takes did it take? It was
I
like,
really enjoyed it.
I guess it was pretty cool.
And then the note, it was an envelope with an address on it, and then there was a phone number inside. And then she goes to the payphone and she places a call to Kevin Bacon,
I was wondering when he was going to come
who is sitting in a car next to a man with gloves,
Uh-oh.
who is saying like, you
The
know,
man's in the backseat though, clutching the
yeah,
headband.
clutching,
And
like
again-
he keeps doing it.
And you can hear like the leather glove. It's just like it was like supposed to be creepy, but it just kind of like annoyed me.
silly.
It was a little silly.
But yeah, Kevin's like, you know, someone's looking for
He
you,
left
and
camp.
he knows what you did. One thing we forgot to say too, the reason she freaks out about the police when she first sees that is because the tape said police evidence before it went to the content from X. So she thinks it's like the police who are after her. But he's like, someone knows what you did. The past is here to haunt you. Like, you have to come to this house in the hills tonight or something like that. Or maybe that's a little bit later when she goes and meets Kevin for lunch in the hotel. She doesn't eat. He's eating.
Which made me think of like grabbing lunch downtown in like a skyscraper. It was kind of like an eerie thought.
Yeah,
you know, like a kitchen in a skyscraper. It felt very 80s.
It was
first
making
of all.
me feel, I just seen Kinds of Kindness and it felt like
How
the bar.
is there a kitchen in a skyscraper?
You know, like the Space Needle situation?
Yeah.
Not a kitchen, a restaurant.
Oh, a restaurant.
with a kitchen.
With a kitchen.
True, fair.
So yeah, maybe it goes to that scene so we meet.
Well, then there's something that happens in the car after they hang up where you don't see the man's face, but he's talking to his employer being like, now that we're crossing over into illegal territory, you have to pay me more because I don't just do
Yes.
this shit for nothing. And then
Is that when he starts clutching the banister even harder?
Angry about how much money he has.
He doesn't make any noise, but he loves to clutch things.
My.
well, if he's a he, we don't know at this point in
Oh,
time.
right.
Them.
They,
Gloved person.
Yes.
Okay.
Who do you think the killer is so far?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who
It could be
it be?
one of the
Who
detectives.
could
It could be one of the people involved at the studio. It could be Kevin Bacon. It could be.
It's too obvious to be Kevin Bacon.
because he was in the scene with the killer.
Gloved person.
That would be a little confusing.
Exactly.
Excellent deduction
He has
skills.
3 hands.
Or 4.
So the next scene.
I think this is when she goes to her agent. No, it's after the first day on the set.
Does she then
Wait.
go to the video store and ask about the
Oh,
to trace
yes,
the-
that is when she goes to trace the tape. Good thinking, Joe.
my thinking thoughts are working. They're activated.
To trace the what?
She wants her friend who works at a... What was it? Should we could also... If it's gonna take, we could also quickly describe the rest of the plot.
Let's wrap this
Allison's like,
up.
get me the fuck out of here.
No, I would say I'm very
The ants have
cozy.
come. We're done.
I'm very cozy. I'm cool with continuing us on as is, but I do feel like Joe and I are locked in,
What is our
torturing everyone.
What's our option? We just
We could take turns quickly, broadly
Wrapping it up.
sweeping through the plot. Yes.
so they're at the video store tracing the videotapes, And the video guy's like, usually it's printed on Fuji
Yeah, that was actually kind of
VHS,
interesting, like
but it looks
video
like this,
history.
which is rare to find. I know some guys that might be able to trace it, but then nothing ever really becomes of that.
No.
Wait, trace what?
The videotape that was kind of left at her house to scare her.
Is that when she's like, I don't fucking care how you do it?
She was just like, do it and don't watch none of your business, blah, 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 blah. This part I didn't like. She's gone. And then he out loud says to an empty room to himself, he goes, you're welcome. I'm the only guy who doesn't want to sleep with you.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Or you're only nice to me. I'm the only guy who doesn't want to sleep with you.
Yeah.
I just didn't like it because
Gays, they could be mean too.
it's like, it didn't feel like an authentic thing to say to an empty room. And it made her seem like, again, like an object. So even her friend sees her as an object.
Well, but then would you say he kind of gets punished?
Well, yeah, which is awful.
In like the 90s, or like there was like a commentary on a lot of like horror movies of like the 80s and 90s, is there'd always be like a black character in those movies, and they traditionally be killed off first.
Yes.
Yeah.
So much so that the trope was commented on.
There's an arrest happening over there. I just have to really quickly. I'm distracted.
So there's an arrest happening next to us.
He's just being told he can't be naked, which is fair.
Yeah.
There's more police coming.
Oh shit.
There's more police coming. Guys, we're on location today. We're on location.
This is happening in their apartment.
So when we were walking over to get set up, I was like, I think that man's naked
Oh,
right
did you
now.
say that? I did not hear.
And no one really acknowledged me. So I was like, oh, I guess we'll
hear
set up
you.
anyway.
Guys, they were all laughing and it ended on a happy note.
Oh, that's good.
They all laughed and the man put on his clothes and he's biking away.
What are the police doing now?
Well,
They're walking away.
they're walking away.
He wasn't unattractive.
The man?
There are worse people who could have been,
There-
you
that
know,
could have
taking
been-
their clothes
yeah.
off.
I confess I did really look too closely.
Nice. So this guy was kind of shitty to Maxine, and then that night he's like closing up the video store, and he thinks he like hears something outside.
Somebody comes to the counter and he's like, look, I don't run that kind of business anymore. You need to go. So I don't know if it was like, was he trying to
By
pay for
porn?
sex? Like I didn't
Yeah,
know. Or,
I thought pay for sex.
And so does the guy
Yeah.
leave?
yeah,
Yeah.
It's like an older
Oh,
man.
and then he follows and watches him leave.
yeah, but it's too late.
He's distracted. He's looking out the door. It turns out that our gloved man comes with a hunting knife and drags it along the back of the
It's
man's
gruesome.
neck. But it was like the blood was kind of like really, really red saturated, kind of an ode to kind of like the blood splatter look of like the 80s. Just like this really oversaturated red that like doesn't look real quite.
Yes, which is interesting because at the end of the
cool they did
movie,
that.
or later on in the movie, she goes, the blood doesn't look real.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Which is what I thought the director might
Yeah.
be.
Paying
Yeah.
homage to the 80s, you know.
Homage.
Homage.
I thought it was homage.
I think you're right, actually, homage.
He gets murdered. And what else? Does he like slash him through the neck or what happens?
I think his eye,
yeah,
Oh.
his eye.
it was
I
pretty
don't
bad.
like eye stuff.
Yeah, we
Like,
won't
I
describe
don't like eye
it,
stuff.
but
And then
No.
one of it's sad, but also one of the hilarious scenes follows next. Cut to the next morning, and all these people
the
are
video store's beneath Maxine's apartment.
and all these people are surrounding the video store in the morning, and Maxine's like walking out of her apartment to go see, and the detectives show up. It's all in slow motion. Williams and Torres are walking up. They catch Maxine's eyes. Forensic people are like wheeling out the body on a gurney. It's covered in a white sheet. There's like blood all over the sheet. Williams is staring, locks eye contact with Maxine, and is walking up to the gurney, doesn't even look down, pulls off the top of the white sheet to reveal
What?
the man's horribly mutilated face,
Ew.
to reveal that her friend has in fact died.
Okay, I will say, I do
God.
think it's silly. It wouldn't happen like that, but I didn't hate this part. Even
No,
though-
I didn't hate it either. That was amazing. I was amazing camp. It was camp to the max.
Also, her reaction, it made me, because I was kind of questioning if she was like a empathetic person or like was she gonna be the villain, and her genuine reaction to seeing her friend killed, she goes across the police tape, she's like crying, they're trying to hold her back. It made me see that she really cared. Like I was imagining, like the movie Pearl, the main character is a psychopath who's crazy, so I was thinking Maxine was gonna be similar, but at this moment I kind of
She has
saw
heart.
she had heart, and she doesn't just care about fame, even though that's like her primary motivation.
So then she meets them at the police station or something. Is that the scene that follows?
I think maybe. Oh, when she has to learn her lines.
she has to
Oh
learn her
yes.
lines.
Wait.
Oh, that was the cool part, the cool death.
What?
In between her friend being murdered, it's cutting to her
Yeah.
trying
Reading
to
the lines.
memorize her lines, and she was highlighting them. They're all like her being a possessed woman screaming about like murder,
And it kind of aligns with what we're seeing
on.
on the screen of how her friend's getting killed.
Yes.
Because also the way that she's highlighting kind of matches the movements of the knife. So she like highlights like this, and then the knife goes like that, and then the Night Stalker character stabs her friend, and then she like sets her highlighter down to like highlight something.
yeah.
I thought it was really
That's
cool.
Yeah.
I agree.
Also, I just read that this is the only, other than the ending, this is the only on-screen death.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
It's challenging because these 3 films are extremely different, but the first 2 are horror films. And I would not argue that this is a horror film in the same vein.
I think it was combining thriller, cop, murder, female in peril tropes with final girl, horror movie, scream queen tropes. And I kind of liked the mashup. Like, for me, quite honestly, I really enjoyed the movie. Like, I really liked it, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, because like an 80s slasher, like you're there to see the kill count. Like you're expecting to see like people get killed on screen every 8 minutes. And this did not have any on-screen murder stuff for the one.
Yeah, I think I was just saying my expectations were different.
It's interesting though, because I would say like this is like a whodunit also. We're trying to guess who the killer is. Seeing the on-screen death, like you're kind of like getting maybe more clues on who like the killer could be.
I also, this is definitely a mystery thriller, but I thought it was interesting that the one death in it is the black queer-coded character.
Yeah, we've got to loop back to that. Yes, that's It was a strange choice. Like, what was the commentary on that?
If you think of it like through that lens, like his death was very graphic, gruesome, and problematic. And then the women, I mean, we definitely see their dead bodies, which are then like objectified. So I definitely feel like that was problematic too. Like Halsey, and they were only in it for like one scene. Then the next time we see them, and Lily Collins, they're just like disturbed bodies. Like just so I think both are bad.
Speaking of bad elements, did you see who executive produced this?
Yes, I did.
No.
Sam Levinson.
What's wrong with him again?
It's the Euphoria guy.
Euphoria and The Idol. Well, he's just not working as a director anymore because of some of like the more problematic nature of Euphoria and The Idol in particular. Just its display of like women and sex.
I think the main, The Idol was just so bad. It was fun.
It was fun.
But also I think he is hard to, like, in addition to all of that, he's a difficult person to work with, not in the sense that he's like everyone who, like all the stars who work with him defend him, but then I think he creates very like intense environments where he's like changing his mind a lot. Like, I want this to happen because I'm an artist, and then people, like the crew has to stay like really late, and that's kind of what I heard as well.
And he often chooses women as the catalysts for his experiences that he has gone through, because he has talked a lot about his struggles with addiction and stuff, and that's what Rue is based off of.
I really actually think Euphoria, the parts that are strongest are about Rue's addiction, and I think that part's really lovely, but the parts that really suck about Euphoria are the parts that are like, and now we're gonna go look at the drug dealers. I'm like, no, I don't want to watch that. Can bring me back to high school.
I don't want to see that.
Or we're gonna show Sydney Sweeney hiding in a bathtub and her shirt just can't stay on. It's like, what?
But the bathtub scene is pretty good when she's in the bathtub.
It was haunting.
Yeah. I think her shirt was on. Was it not?
I'm pretty sure it's pretty gratuitous.
I ultimately think that he is executive producer because A24 produced Euphoria.
So where are we at now?
She goes to the cops.
They're at the morgue.
Yes.
And there's a vending machine, and Detective Williams brings Maxine a can of new Coke, but it was supposed to be an act of like compassion.
Oh gosh, okay.
So then they're up looking at the bodies, and it happens again where we're like, Williams is kind of like drawing Maxine in. Maxine looks like she's gonna open up, and then Torres kind of steps in, and it's the bodies of the 2 women who have been killed by the water. And then Torres steps in, and he kind of like puts his foot in his mouth again, and then Maxine's like, I'm gonna be late for work. She slams down the Coke, does not accept it, and then Williams again is like, damn it, like we're so close, you gotta open your fucking mouth.
And then the female cop chases her out into the hallway, Maxine.
Oh, okay.
And she says, don't you want to help save these other women? And then what does she say, Joe? You loved it so much. I did too, but you go ahead. Or I remember if you want to.
Maxine's like, why do I have to save them?
I think she said...
just like that amazing delivery.
She said, well, I had to save myself, so maybe they should too.
Oh, yeah.
Which actually was very...
And the people that see go, gangster.
They did not, but I'm sure they were thinking
that would have been more appropriate, that scene.
I think we should just say the reason they think she can help is because all these people know Maxine, so it's clear that she's a connector, must have some knowledge.
So I don't think they ever think that she's the killer.
It's like a little unclear, but I would agree.
So now they're at the movie studio, and Lily Collins is sitting in like a forest. You like don't know it's a movie at first though. You like just like see her screaming or something in the woods.
So she was the original character in the first, because this is a sequel.
Yeah.
The director says to her, tomorrow we're filming the flashback scenes. It'll be great for you to connect with such and such woman who's the Lily Collins character.
So she like was already killed off in the first movie.
Yes.
So Lily Collins is filming her flashback part. And then the director, in what I thought was a very damning scene, I was convinced that the director was going to be the killer the whole time. The director, she yells cut and says that there's not enough blood on Lily Collins. And she scoops up blood out of a bucket and goes up to Lily Collins and rubs it all over Lily Collins'
She also
face.
says it looks fake.
It says it looks fake.
I really liked the director, even though
Yeah, no, she's great. She's from The Crown.
I thought so. Yeah, Crown. She's Diana in The Crown.
Oh,
One of the versions.
I think the
There's-
older Diana.
okay.
Because the other
They
one
were
is
both
Emma
good.
Corrin.
Yeah.
But then she says, if you get anything done, you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
It was very
Which I was like,
good ring to it.
I feel like they were trying to get you to believe that she was the killer.
I just like she exuded a lot of power.
She did, yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
So she's wiping, and then she's like, oh, by the way, this is Maxine. And then Lily Collins, she's like, oh my gosh, nice to meet you. She takes Maxine's hand, and then the fake blood rubs off of Maxine's hands, and then the director's like, well, it looks like we've got blood on all of our hands now.
oh yes, and they were all standing in a row.
Yeah.
That was really good.
So now it's following Lily Collins is out at her trailer talking to, she has her door open out of her RV and is talking to Maxine, kind of like giving her confidence, being like, hey, like you have like the face to be an actor. And she's using her British accent now.
Yeah,
She's,
it's like very like high.
and she's like, you just got to get your SAG card. It's all going to happen at once for you. Like
and
it
if
happened
you
for me.
get on this director's good side, you'll be set. Look at me, I was dead, and now I'm back in this film. And she's kind of a little condescending to Maxine.
Yeah.
And then she calls her Nadine.
Yeah, she gets the name wrong. But then I don't know what the context is this, but she's like, and you had the face for screaming or something
I think
like that.
so. And then she does her fake scream.
Lily Collins, and it was in the trailer. It was like really disturbing. She goes like,
Joe is mocking a scream right now.
And no sound, just like
no sound, just silently like screaming.
And then she goes, well, I'm going to a fancy producer's house in the hills tonight. And so we're all like, oh no.
Nice to meet you, Nadine.
And then Maxine just like kind of looks annoyed by her.
Yeah, she is.
But then the next scene was one of my favorite. She's leaving. The director is standing on the lot talking to somebody else and is like, Maxine, come here. And she basically says like, you know, I'm doing this sequel to prove my worth as an artist. And in Hollywood, they don't like artists. And so if you get the chance, you better say something with it. And then she's basically like, do you have what it takes to do this? Because if not, I can get the next best girl on the set tomorrow. And then Mia Goth is like, no, I can do it. I'll do whatever you say. And she's like, all right, well, don't get distracted. Whatever's distracting you in your life, you need to rip it out and like get rid of it. And she's like, I intend to. Have the weekend, go party, whatever. But then, wait, no, that can't be right. That's later.
Well, Maxine gets in her car, and then Kevin Bacon's following her out of the lot. And then
Oh, yeah.
She-
We're not very far along at all.
I know. We can speed things. Let's wrap
All
things up. She gets out of her. Kevin Bacon's been following her, and then she gets out of her car, and she's like, "Would you stop fucking following me?" And she goes up and smashes the windshield off the side of his car.
Wow. They know each
No,
other from
she
something else?
like she takes
She punches him.
no. Yeah, she
Oh.
takes her rings.
Oh,
her
my-
keys, puts them in between her fingers, goes up, punches him in the face a few times. It's pretty good.
It was great.
That's badass.
And then he's like, now it's personal.
So,
Ugh.
is he stalking?
Whatever he told her to do when they talked on the phone, she didn't do it. And so he's mad. I think maybe the fastest thing to do, what are Kevin Bacon's remaining beats?
Yeah. Oh, her agent.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
We-
He was amazing.
Hit the introduction to the agent.
Giancarlo Esposito from Breaking Bad. She's like, you're my attorney, right? I can tell you anything in confidence. And he goes, sure. Yeah, yes, of course. Like, what's the deal? And then they cut away from this, but she describes everything that happens in the X movie. So basically, she ended up murdering these people she used to work with who were making her do porn. And it sounds like it was a bad environment. They were really old and creepy. And Mia Goth played both herself as the Maxine and the old lady who was bad and who died, who was murdered by Mia.
Really? Like,
Yes. So she confesses to murder, and then Giancarlo Esposito is like, don't worry, I'm your manager. I got this. Don't say anything to anyone. Don't go where Kevin Bacon told you to go to. We'll take care of this. I wish you'd come to me sooner because it's, you're a star. No, I'm not going to let anything stand in the way. I'm the one who's most invested in your career
Yeah.
as your agent or whatever.
Is he the one who's doing it?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. And then I love the design of his production design in his room. It's like
And
all
his
the
outfit.
wooden like walls.
Yeah.
It's like very 80s.
It's very Anchorman. It reminded me
Yes.
of Anchorman. Also, I wouldn't describe it as murder. I would probably say like it's self-defense.
I didn't see it, so I don't know. But yeah.
Oh, yes. Sorry. I forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more self-defense. What I was most curious about in this movie was like, they're like, uh-oh, Maxine's heading to Hollywood. What's going to happen after she killed somebody in self-defense? Will she go down a slippery slope and murder more people? Who knows?
Right.
But like, it's self-defense. She's having flashbacks of like killing these people.
Yes. And it was like I guess I intuited it was an abusive environment.
She, I believe, just kills Pearl, the old lady. Pearl and Pearl's husband murder all
All the
of the
rest
porn people.
Well, that makes sense given who Pearl is in the movie Pearl, she's a
Yes.
psychopath obsessed with a babe who does murder people.
Yeah.
Very similar theme.
Except that Maxine is not like that, so that was very surprising to me. Okay, to then quickly wrap up the agent storyline.
Isn't it we're picking your dog up in 15 minutes?
Yeah, we
All right, we're gonna go for now, and
And the wind's picking up, we're gonna get blown away.
And welcome back.
Oh, did you enjoy your taxi ride back to O'Hare?
And then I'm sorry you had to go to LAX and you've been stuck there for hours.
We would have picked you up. But we were so busy. We didn't have time
I'm
to pick
getting
you
in the
up.
car right now to come get you.
Hold on, I'm almost there.
So, okay.
This is Allison and Joe in LA, by the way.
Yeah, we're back in LA.
Present day.
I was thinking that we were going to segue back and forth, but I realized that that didn't really make a lot of sense. And so from here,
We're just unhinged. Don't pause. Don't delete us from your subscription. You're trapped with us. And we're going to talk about whatever we want in the realm of vaccine, though.
wait, what did you say, Patsy?
Patsy?
Did you say Patsy and milk?
What? No, I said we're going to talk about Maxine mostly.
Oh.
Patsy and milk. I love how you just like accepted that though in a way. You were like, yes, Patsy and milk.
So I guess one thing that really stood out to both of us when we were kind of talking in Chicago and we I think we're curious about it and wanted to talk about it more and delve into it more was the queer coded character who I guess whose name I should look up. TV series? No. Okay. No. Was that who it was? Frankie Love? Is that the character's name? I guess it was this guy, but he looks different without his earring.
No, the man was black.
I know, so I was confused.
That's a South Asian.
But who was that guy in the movie? I don't remember him.
We don't care.
Oh, I found him. This guy.
Moses.
Yeah.
His name's Leon in the movie.
Okay, Leon. We were both kind of curious about the Leon character. And I read this really interesting article because we were all like, oh, he was definitely supposed to be gay. And I think we kind of intuited this for a couple of reasons. One, because
He's hyper fixated on horror movies, which is actually kind of a gay quality.
And then he has that line about not wanting to sleep with Maxine. They're seen like very closely lying on top of one another in a way that I did not interpret as romantic, but as deeply platonic. Also, there's this part right before he dies where somebody comes in, he says something like, I don't do that kind of work anymore. This is just a video store. I read this whole article in Polygon, and it was talking about how Maxine incorporates and really much highlights how there was a moral panic in the 1980s. Specifically the later 1980s. Things like censorship, how lyrics and music could inspire people to like kill one another or commit suicide. Horror movies were too violent. How like kids shouldn't be able to see these things. That might have been around the time that like labels wound up on CDs and stuff like that. And so it was like this strange puritanical moment. This is a quote from the article in the middle of the 80s. That was conflated with the moral panic over the AIDS epidemic and a backlash against gay Americans stemming from fear of AIDS. I'm still quoting the article. If we think of Leon within the context of his time, he like works at a video store. He seems to be queer. It's like adding to the coding of his character and putting him into a very specific context. And then the article is trying to question whether was this coding meant to be ambiguous or subtle or a queer coding, or was there more to the storyline that was cut out of the final movie? Did you notice anything about the character of Leon that was like not explained?
Give me a hint.
Something visible about his character.
That he's black.
But no. No. No.
Did he have an ear piercing?
I think he did.
He was wearing a jean jacket.
He had a cast on his arm. An unexplained cast on his arm. And so this article is positing that perhaps the killer was watching the video store and Leon was maybe providing sex for money. And so he knew that like not only was Maxine corrupted by Hollywood, but also by her friend Leon. And that's why he became a target of the dad and why he died, because him being tied to these things that would have inspired like a moral panic at the time.
Was that to the cast?
The reason he doesn't do that kind of work anymore, went south. There was some kind of like physical altercation that made him afraid to do this anymore. Or maybe it was tied to like other people in the community realizing what he was up to and reacting violently. So I thought that was really interesting. And then there was this other interesting quote that kind of landed more on the side of coding, saying, this is a quote, but in the language of 1980s movies, it's unequivocal coding. And in the language of Maxine, a gender-conscious horror movie where attractive women are mostly cast as prey for monstrous men, it's even clearer. If he isn't among the ranks of men who want to exploit, violate, control, or dismember Maxine, if he isn't a leering lech who sees all women in terms of sex or violence, it can only be because he's gay. The only man a woman in an 80s exploitation thriller could be safe around is one who isn't interested in women at all. I don't know. I thought that was like interesting that the article was wondering if there was supposed to be more to this character or if it was left intentionally vague as a way, like as something for the audience to piece together.
So then how would you attach it to the director of the movie? Because you said that she was also possibly queer-coded as lesbian.
That kind of makes me think Ty West had a backstory for Leon figured out, but it was not intended to be in the movie. Because I look at the director character and I was reading some articles that said she was obviously quoted as like a dyke director. I mean, I guess I can see like she's a powerful woman. Like someone in one article was saying how like they sense some like sexual interests between the director and Maxine. I personally didn't see that. I saw her as a professional through and through, and I was really only thinking about her in terms of this like ambitious director, but kind of in reading that commentary, I could see it. And I kind of think like all of the side characters in this movie are like painted with a really broad brush. Like if you step back and think about like how they function within this world or this kind of story, it's supposed to trigger thoughts like this, but it's supposed to be kind of like shallow because Hollywood itself and the way it tells stories is kind of shallow.
Yeah, that's what the Big Picture podcast was talking about, applying especially to the detectives, how they kind of just fit into these very stereotypical roles. Literally like the good cop, bad cop.
The female cop, the male cop.
Yeah, and the bad cop quite literally being bad at his job.
But I know like some people think that could make it a weaker movie, but for some reason I really liked that because it made it feel like it was being really meta about like how we tell these kinds of stories.
I don't know, there was just like something missing. When I hear the word meta, Scream accomplished that so well and had so much to say about horror movies, especially of like the 80s.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas like Maxine, I don't really know. I think that's just the problem with the ever-changing landscape of movies. And I feel like we've already explored so much of genre but also like subgenre.
Yeah.
And so like where does Maxine even fit into this? Like what is, I think we talked a little bit in Chicago of like what we were trying to fit the genre into, but what would you describe Maxine as?
We did talk about in Chicago. It's like a mashup, right? It's horror meets slasher meets whodunit. And then I think it's really telling that the Elizabeth Debicki, the director character, is making a sequel and taking it really like artistically seriously, even though it's like this dumb Scream Queen horror sequel.
Right.
I guess it depends on how intentional is Ty West being like, is he kind of like calling to mind all these different genres and kind of laughing at the way we think that's serious art? Or does he think it's serious art?
I don't really know. I think that he clearly has a love and respect for these movies. There was a part of me that just wanted to know more about everyone, and I wanted a fresh take. Like Maxine, her character, I feel like she was a really fresh take. I think I mentioned in the flashback too, it's like she's a woman that has been through shit and she rose above it and she knows how to take care of herself. At night, she walks down an alley by herself.
Yeah.
Guess what? She has a gun with her. She's not gonna get fucked around with. And Leon's character and the director's character, they just feel so typical. And I don't think I was alone in this thought. I think a lot of people thought that the director was also possibly going to be the killer. I would have been disappointed if she turned out to be the killer. At the same time, I would have enjoyed that more than
What happened?
Because for me, it came out of left field so much.
We haven't told our listeners who the killer is yet. But quickly, before we do, I want to say something about what you just said. Maxine was absolutely an original character, at least in my mind. And I think that's why I like the movie so much, because theoretically, if I had heard someone say, oh, in this movie, this woman, when asked to help other women who've been harmed, turns up her nose and says no, I'd be like, oh, what a terrible person. But when she gave that line about how like, well, I had to survive it myself, so they should have done that too.
Yeah.
That was so inspiring to me in a dark, twisted kind of way, where I was like, I've never seen something like that. And it kind of struck a chord in me. And then I think by the end, and they kind of had a heavy-handed flashback to that moment, but then she decides to go to where the killer is. I think because she's kind of learned she can save herself, but she can also save other people. And that felt kind of moving to me too, in a way. I don't know if you thought the same thing.
The idea of all this is great, and Mia Goth is brilliant. There's a lot placed on her shoulders, and she can carry it.
But
I just wish this third act
was stronger.
And I like don't know what the commentary is.
Yeah. Well, okay. Before we kind of reveal to the audience, I have a thought about why I feel like Maxine feels like the most alive besides the performance character.
Oh, yeah, tell us.
So I kind of think like maybe that Maxine really is just like a symbol for fame, or like the chase of fame, because there's that part where the director's like, you know, the reason you're here is because of what you said during the audition. That made us all sit up straight.
What did she say during the audition?
Well, it's left, like you don't find out right away then. So you're left thinking like, oh, whatever she said must have been super profound. Like I'm so excited to see what that was later on. And then maybe like an hour later, they finally cut back to the end of her audition where she's given the monologue and then she's about to leave and she turns around, she goes, look, y'all you better hire me because I'm going to be famous. Like, I am going to succeed. Like, I will be famous. That's it. All she said was, I'm going to be famous. And they were like, yeah, that's like such a shallow, I don't know. You know what I mean? And so then I was kind of thinking about how all these characters, like, is Lillian? Character jealous that she's succeeding. Actually, I'm going to take it back. Not jealous. He's kind of like looks askance at commercial success because he's maybe more of like an artist who like knows a lot about movies and true cinema. You got the girls who work with Maxine who get murdered. She has that conversation with Halsey, and Halsey's like, wow, you made it. You got cast. It's going to happen to me one day too. Kind of like the hope that you can get out of your bad circumstances.
Say it with a New York accent.
I can't. Like, mom, help me.
Wait, yeah, you know, your mom has one. Why can't you do it?
Coffee? Have some
Coffee.
coffee. And then
Yeah, I just stepped off the set. I'm going to get a hot dog. I don't want people to see me eat in front of them.
I didn't even hear her say that. And then like the cops, like we have the like one cop who wants to be an actor who's kind of like moth to the flame with fame. And then we have the other cop who like judges it and sees it as like seedy. And then we have the religious cult that like sees fame as the great evil. So, do you know what I'm saying? Like all
So you're
these
saying
characters.
each character is a reflection of fame.
And Maxine is fame, or the idea of fame, chasing fame.
I believe it.
Oh, yeah. And the director is the kind of person, she has that line where she's like, if they're going to scream about your movie being pornographic or dangerous, you might as well have something to say. And so she kind of sees like attention from commercial success or negative public opinion as an opportunity to influence the public consciousness. You know, I really think that this is what it was trying to do. I don't know how successful it was, but I feel like when I like think about it through that lens, it like makes more sense to me what was going on.
So then my question for you is, what is Kevin Bacon's character think of fame?
It's a good question.
Did we even talk about what happens to him in the plot
No, we
description?
didn't. I think that's where we ended. It's like we had just started talking about Giancarlo Esposito. And Giancarlo Esposito sees fame as a means to enrich himself because he's a manager. Yeah. And then Kevin Bacon, I would think, I don't know.
The seedy side.
The seedy side. Maybe too that you can avoid. I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. That's the only one I'm kind of stuck on.
The negative consequences.
Of being famous?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. That's a good question. But he literally gets crushed by fame. That sounds profound, but I really don't think it makes any sense. To quickly summarize what happens in the rest of the movie, Kevin Bacon continues to try and get Maxine to do what he wants, which is to meet with his mysterious employer. But her agent, played by Giancarlo Esposito, takes the reins and tells her not to do this. And then they eventually conspire after the director tells Maxine that she has to get rid of any distractions, whatever's taking her away from the movie, impacting her performance. And they conspire to entrap Kevin Bacon, which they do by going to a club, and Maxine has amazing makeup on. She looks like a superhero, but in a hot way.
She looks like a wrestler from Glow.
Yes, which is Will and my favorite show. We talked about it while you were not in the room. But what happens to Kevin Bacon is he gets distracted by hot Maxine at the club. Well, also that's a little confusing. Like, why did they have to go to the club to...
That's what was going to be my question.
They didn't really need to do that.
No.
They just looked cool.
She's at the club and Kevin Bacon's following her around, and then she's
a pink pony girl.
Escapes to the bathroom, and you think that she's in trouble. You're like, oh no. And Kevin's...
This part was gross.
Banging down all the doors. I saw you... Allison has very visceral reactions to anything on the screen. Like, she acts like...
It's real.
It's real and in her face. And so he's
so
bursting
funny.
through all the toilets, and
it's gross.
Each time he opens a new one, it gets more and more disgusting in the toilet. And then he's at the last toilet, he bursts open the door, and then he realizes that there's a window at the top that Maxine escaped out of.
And I wish I could remember his dialogue there, because I think it would add to the fame theory, because he was talking about like, I'm a criminal and so are you. The difference between me and you is that I can admit it and you're pretending you're not.
Whoa.
And then he like bursts open the door and she's gone.
So he was just speaking to an empty room.
Whoa.
Which is the opposite of fame.
Anonymity.
He's alone with all the shit.
Which... Okay.
That was a long pause. What were you going to say?
To make a...
Witch? Or were you calling someone a witch?
You witch! I was trying to make an intellectual connection in my mind that it was like flashing back to me in high school trying to finish my essay, like, surely I can connect these 2 points. Surely I can.
And then so he runs outside. I don't know how he finds Maxine, but I think she makes it seem like he's like on her tail, and you think that he's going to
capture
her. But then he gets knocked out.
He's standing up on like, not like a stage, but like a loading area, like where they bring in deliveries to the club. And then this car pulls up and it's Giancarlo Esposito being like, we got you, buddy. And then like some other big henchman like comes out of the club.
out of the club
and knocks him to the ground.
and clubs him.
Okay.
So he gets knocked out.
Yeah.
And then I think the movie cuts to black, right? We like don't really know. And then
it
Kevin
opens
Bacon
up.
comes to.
He's trapped in the car.
And Maxine is standing badass with the agent and the henchman staring at Kevin Bacon.
Wait, I just realized how I can connect it. If you're famous and you have a bad past that will get out there and get you canceled or in trouble or make you lose your fame, who steps in to save the day? Who takes out the trash? Who gets rid of the shit? It's your agent, bitch.
Gosh.
And so they literally crush
Jesse over here from Breaking Bad.
Maybe it was seeing Giancarlo again that brought me back to that place. So then they literally squash this part of her past. They squash it like a bug.
I love that scene because it seems like they're going to interrogate Kevin Bacon and they press the machine to squish the car. And I was like waiting for them to stop it, but they literally just kill him.
Honestly, that was like very thrilling because your mind does have expectations and like, oh yeah, they're going to torture him. Like, of course, it's going to be really intense. It's going to be really crazy.
But no, it's just immediate.
But yeah, that's what I think that was going on there. Okay, so we figured out the Kevin Bacon component.
Good.
I'm really happy about that. Okay. From there, everything seems to be okay. But Maxine thinks back on what the cops said to her about helping the other women. And she decides to follow that address that Kevin Bacon gave her that Giancarlo Esposito told her not to go to. Oh, because she also kind of reflects on how her two friends who were murdered, Lily Collins, her co-star who was murdered, also they're going to this house in the hills. And so she realizes the address is in the hills. She decides to go. Very confusing thing happens. She gets there. It's like up by the Hollywood sign. Mm-hmm. And then like she starts to like climb up there and the cops are in the car. They weren't following her to the club where she kills someone. They missed that part, but they were somehow now following her to the cliff. But then
to the cliff.
to the cliff.
So Maxine gets into a tram.
Yeah, but before she does that, they're like, should we get her? And they're like, no, let's see what she does.
But it's like, how would they see? They're at the bottom of the hill.
I don't know. Maybe it has to do with the fame metaphor. Should I filter everything?
She's climbing her way to the top.
I guess maybe like we all want to see like, does somebody fall from grace? What happens when they get to the height of fame? I don't know. I feel like maybe the whole thing's a big metaphor. But anyways, putting that aside, she goes up the hill.
And she pretty easily gets into the house, right?
I think the door is like open.
We see the green door that was in the murder videos.
Yeah.
Does somebody show up or is there a suitcase?
I think
somebody shows up.
She hears a sound from the green room. And she goes in. There's a video playing.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember what the video was. And then the man with the gloves appears and it's revealed who he was at long last.
He's just sitting in the chair and the gloves are on the table. He's not wearing them. And then it cuts to this man. And I was like, who are you?
And it turned out to be her dad. And you know what? It was good acting on Mia Goth's part because like the second she was reacting to him, I was like, is this her dad?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I kind of automatically knew, but it was very strange.
Is he immediately trying to convince his daughter to come back with him? He's like, you've been sinning.
Well, it's even weirder than that.
What happened?
He was like, I set you on the wrong path. Hollywood's so evil. It's corrupting you. But we can save you. I was trying to save all the others, but they refused to like listen to me. But you're going to have a choice and you're going to choose right. And so basically he wants to create a movie.
Oh, that's right.
Where he gives these women and other evil people, as he sees it, a chance to repent or he will graphically murder them. And so he like ties Maxine up and suddenly there's like a whole cult.
As he's doing this whole monologue,
yes.
I think that Maxine is walking backwards down the hallway in like shock
and fear.
And there's a spiral staircase at the end of the hallway with a suitcase at the top. And she backs into the suitcase and it knocks the suitcase down the spiral staircase in slow motion and out pops Lily.
Doing the scream face for real.
Because her body has been chopped up and was put in the suitcase. And then Maxine looks down at the body, and this is the first time where she really acknowledges, like you just see that she's terrified and is deeply disturbed by what's going on. And then that's when she
falls and then gets tied up.
She's now outside by the pool where all of the father's
cult
minions are surrounding the pool. They have a camera
wearing,
set up.
Long robes.
And is there plan to like set Maxine on fire? Or what
if she doesn't do what she's supposed to do?
What is she supposed to do?
I think he like is like
I repent. And
and then I'm gonna go to the club.
I'm not a star.
Yeah, exactly what was gonna happen. I don't really know, but I will say like the reveal of it being the dad was
stupid.
disappointing to me. They were trying to make it all religious, and I wanted to be like, no. But then when they were wearing the robes and they were like filming it, I was like, all right, this is kind of fun. So I got back on board. I was like, all right,
And
I'll go
then-
for the ride.
Fucking Cheech and Chong finally show up.
Are you allowed to say that? Cheech and Chong.
It's that stoner movie.
Wait, what's their names?
Cheech and Chong
But
are a
it
comedy
sounds-
duo founded in Vancouver and consisting of American Cheech and Marin and Canadian Tommy Chong. This is a relevant reference. They're from the 70s.
Okay, I guess it's fine. It seems like they're.
Oh,
making
thank
fun.
you for your approval, Miss Patsy Milk over there.
Patsy Milk? Okay. Maybe the Two Stooges.
There's Three Stooges, and that's from the 50s.
Okay, fine. Cheech and Chong. All right. So they show up and they start
They're
to.
hiding in the brush. And do they start shooting immediately?
Yeah. And then Maxine remembers her knife, pulls it out, frees herself. But then the dad escapes and we see that happen. So does Maxine. And then the female cop, I believe, comes over and is like, stay here, Maxine. Backup's coming. We'll get him. And then they run after him and she is like, in her mind, hell no. And then she runs after them too. And then they run up to the Hollywood sign.
I love that the Hollywood sign is like literally in the backyard of this mansion. Like it's
Yes.
accessible,
Yes.
which is really fun.
She hears like horrible sounds and like the male cop is on the ground bleeding out and the female cop's like, put pressure here. Like, I'm going to get him. And she like runs off. And then the man's talking about how like, I've never been up here. I really wanted to be a star. Like he's talking about his like Hollywood ambitions and then he passes away. And then she like rushes after the female cop trying to find the dad. And then you hear a gunshot and then the female cop comes like stumbling out of the darkness and there's like something in her eye, like maybe a knife. And she's like, I told you I'd get him.
She's like manic. This whole movie, she's been so calm and strong-headed. And now she's like frantically screaming that she got him. And then she like falls in the brush down the hill. I was very disturbed by it.
I do think there was some symbolism happening. I don't quite know what it was. Like the guy that wanted to be an actor dies at the foot of the Hollywood sign. And then the woman who wanted justice is blind. She's blinded. I don't know. I wasn't really
and then
sure.
tumbles down the hill.
Like
So
I did feel like there was some kind of like
disturbed by it.
there was something about it that felt like tropey, but I couldn't put my finger on it. So
Yeah.
if anybody out there has a symbolic understanding of the cops, I would love to hear about it because I feel like there was something there.
Yeah.
But yeah, then she gets to her dad.
And then she's standing atop him.
Atop him. That's such a great turn of phrase.
And the helicopters show up. Doesn't one of them shoot like a bright spotlight? And now we're like in the future.
Okay, wait, actually before that happens, her and her dad have a conversation where he's like, I failed you, Maxine, I failed you. Like, you were so beautiful. So then she says, repeat it with me. And then they repeat the quote from the home video, like, I won't accept a life I don't deserve. And then helicopters overhead telling Maxine to drop the gun.
A bright spotlight
Yeah.
from the helicopter shines.
Oh.
Now Maxine is in an interview. They're like, Maxine, now you successfully...
Oh, yeah, she's on the red
caught-"
carpet.
No, she's sitting in like a...
Oh.
Like an interview,
A studio.
a
yes.
studio. Is it more of like a montage of like, and you're in the most successful movie or something like that?
Yeah, you just caught a serial killer and now you're the most successful.
Yeah.
Da-da-da.
And then it shows a picture of the drawing of
No,
The
this
serial
is what
killer.
happened. This is where the confusion came for me. This is a news story. It says the Night Stalker was captured by citizens in Los Angeles today, and they show the sketch.
Yeah.
And then in other news, another killer was just caught by a movie star, and then
I-
they go to the interview.
I didn't catch that. So there are two concurrent murders happening at the same
Yes.
time. And is that also a commentary on like how you can get overshadowed by someone else?
Perhaps. And I think the dad was copying the Night Stalker. And I think it might be a commentary on like how we are attracted to and make stories up about like gruesome things. Like Dahmer, we can recreate the most disturbing things as fiction for entertainment and how that's very kind of fucked up. And so I think there might be something to that as well.
And also how there's like one person becomes famous and then another person can be famous.
For copying them.
For copying
Oh,
them.
yes, because he's paying homage to all these other films. I think
Yeah.
that's for sure something to it.
So then it cuts to arguably one of the more memorable moments of the Maxine trailer, where Maxine is now walking down the red carpet at the Chinese theater and she blows a kiss to the audience. And
And then she's interviewed on the red carpet.
she's interviewed on the red carpet. And I was really bummed by this because I was so excited by this movie in the trailer. I was like, this is the moment. It's just like a quick montage of her doing this. And they said this on the Big Picture podcast, but it's like, I didn't want all this like lead up to this moment. I would have rather seen a movie of like Maxine being
established.
famous and seeing if she can maintain it.
I do like it the way it was. I would be interested in seeing another one though.
Now we're back on the Hollywood Hill at the Hollywood sign, and Maxine is still standing atop her father.
And they're shouting.
Which then I was like, oh, that all was
fantasy.
a fantasy.
I thought they were just scrambling time. Whatever she said in the interview made me think that she was flashing back to her time on the hill.
Because then I thought what was going to happen is, oh no, that was like a fantasy of what could possibly happen. And she's going to shoot her father and she's going to get blamed and go to jail. That's still not what happened.
Which, why that didn't happen doesn't really make sense. But so then they finish the conversation with the dad and she goes, Dad, you didn't fail me. You gave me exactly what I need. Divine intervention, which was quite a good line.
And then she shoots her father.
She shoots him. And then we flash to the real present where the last day on set, they applaud her having finished the role.
You think that she would have been axed from the movie?
Well, maybe that's a commentary too, because like her notoriety for being tangentially involved in something like this would make a horror film kind of like the Blair Witch Project seem more interesting.
Interesting and more marketable.
Yeah, and the director's like, you did it. What do you want to happen next? Because now you can do anything. And she's just like, I just hope it lasts, is all she says. Well, and they're looking at her screaming head as well when they do that. I think that is the end of the movie.
Yeah, I think why Pearl is a better movie is just, it's so weird.
And it ends in the most, it ends kind of similarly, I guess.
She's smiling at the camera.
And then her husband comes back. And there's the dead bodies.
Brother comes back.
That's her brother?
Yes. He was gone at the war. So that kind of brings me back to why I talk about Pearl is because he comes home and his parents are...
Are you sure it's her brother?
It's her brother, yes. Back from the war.
Because I thought the idea was that she was supposed to get married and then like move away from this horrible house, but then her husband goes to war. So she's stuck in the house. And then she thinks he's probably passed away and that she's never going to escape.
I think it's her brother.
I'm going to look it up really quickly. Because I mean, I'm sure you're right because you've seen it more recently than me, but...
Like it'd be more horrifying for the brother to show up and see that his parents have been...
I mean, for sure, but don't you think it'd just be like horrifying to see?
No.
Rotting bodies? Okay.
Just typical Tuesday here in Hollywood.
Husband? No, it's her husband. Pearl's husband, Howard, has been sent to the Western Front.
I guess I'll allow that.
Because that, I think, was like so shocking too, is that you know it's a husband and wife and ex, right? So then you realize that like the husband came back from the war and saw this gruesome scene and like just shrugged.
Still stayed with her.
And was like, all right.
Because he's pretty passive in X. Or he actually might be unwell, like the father's unwell in Pearl.
It says that due to his age and heart condition, this is an ex, Howard is unable to have sex despite Pearl's attempts to seduce him. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that Pearl is the stronger movie, but I do think like this movie, the more I talk about it.
If they had fixed the third act,
yeah,
and it wasn't the father.
Or it could be the father, but we just needed a little bit.
You need to flesh it out. It couldn't just be this little thing at the beginning with the father off camera commenting. No, it did not work at all.
I agree. Also, I wanted to quickly talk about, very random, but Brooke Shields. They reference Brooke Shields in the movie.
Yeah.
Where Maxine's like, name 3 people that got their start in horror movies or whatever. And then Leon lists the people. And then she's like, I'm going to be like Brooke Shields, a crossover star. Leon's like, well, she never did porn. Maxine's like, well, she got naked. And I just thought it was like interesting how like, yeah, even my reaction to like a movie like X, I'm like, I don't want to watch this like movie about porn. Like I have this like baked in puritanical reaction. And then in the audition scene, Maxine even asked to like reveal her boobs. And yet somehow we see that as like different. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's like a movie, it's art, it's not porn. And I just like think it's interesting how like Hollywood's kind of like built on the very same things that we puritanically view as like, ew, gross, no.
Yeah. When I first moved to Hollywood, one of my friends always joked, my dream is to edit film and TV, and he'd be like, oh, you're gonna edit some porn while you're out there? Like it's just like part of Hollywood's history too, is that so much porn was produced out of here, especially out in the valley, right on the cusp, right where the Hollywood studios are.
You know, we're getting dangerously close to the topic
We're so
never
close.
But like,
maybe the closest we'll ever get.
And I brought it up, so shame on me. But yeah, I just find that to be really interesting commentary. And at the same time, like Brooke Shields, like,
yeah,
if we watched the documentary, she was like kind of forced into doing that.
Yeah, well, because she was a child in the movie The Blue Lagoon.
Yeah, I just feel like Ty West, he's really interesting and smart. And so even though his subject matter can be shocking and salacious, it's like he is the director character. He does want to say something, you know, and whether we always understand what he's trying to say.
And just because it's in the confines of this slasher whodunit doesn't mean
it's not art.
Yeah. It's hot.
And I thought we could end by talking about how it's so hilarious that we saw this movie in Chicago and like literally we could see
It was about Hollywood.
It was about Hollywood. We could see like areas of Burbank we've been to. It's parts of the Hollywood that was grungier, looked like our streets. You know what I'm saying? I was like, why are we watching this movie here? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me.
But how quickly times change, because even within the 3 years of us living really close to Hollywood Boulevard, they recently just did construction and got rid of one of the lanes and put all these fancy cones to make more parking available and turned Hollywood Boulevard into a 1-lane road. And it's making traffic so much more worse. It's starting to look like that, like West Hollywood polished look. And that's not why I'm here. I'm here for the grime and the dirt.
You know, I'm going to be honest. I don't mind if it becomes a little nicer.
Yeah, you like a little gentrification.
Well, that's a little bad, but I just
Push people out.
I've just have lived in too nice of places, and so I'm a little spoiled. Like I was in a college town. I was in Washington, D.C., such a beautiful city in a very beautiful neighborhood. So I'm just not used to real cities, I guess.
So you're saying that you should move to the city and it should change for you.
I won't be mad if it does, but no, I just think I need to toughen up. I get used to seeing garbage at my feet. It's like it's been 3 years and it's still so like when I see certain things in our surroundings. I know it's so annoying of me, but
We'll get a broom and sweep it up.
I honestly sometimes do have the urge to pick it up because I'm just like, this is disturbing to me.
You are all talk. You are all talk.
Give me some gloves.
You have all talk.
Give me some gloves and I'll do it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I need to supply you the gloves.
Yeah.
That's the only limitation from you going around and picking up garbage. You're like, I would have picked it up, but Joe hasn't given me gloves. This place would be sparkling. But Joe will not supply me the gloves. Wow, you are a politician. Get you up on the stand. Do you want to replace Joe Biden for the presidential candidacy? She'll pick up the trash as long as you supply the gloves.
But do you not get the urge? Or do you just ignore it? How do you?
I ignore it.
It just like doesn't affect you in your head.
My qualm is the AstroTurf on all these apartment complexes and all these dogs shitting on there. Nobody picking up their dog
That's
shit.
gross.
And so it
Yeah.
just sits on this fake grass
That's
and doesn't go anywhere because it's unnatural. It is unnatural. I'm unhinged right now. I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. We had a slice of cake before this and I blame the sugar.
But yeah, I thought we could end. I mean, we were kind of already doing it right now. So like, why do we live in this place that's shutting us out of our dreams? That is dirty.
Wait, what do you mean shutting us out of our dreams?
Like, it's so hard to break in to the industry, kind of like Maxine's trying to be famous.
Yeah.
We're not trying to be famous, but
But it's like the fun is the pursuit
exactly.
of the dream.
Yes, you kind of jumped the gun. I was gonna lay out all the negatives and then have us come around to the inspiration at the end. But yeah, it's like, you know, and then you go to a place like Chicago and it is like so livable, so beautiful, like such an easier place to live.
Yeah, it was so funny visiting our friends there. They just like knew everyone. And it was like this.
They're waving at people in coffee
Yeah, they
shops.
turned like their little Rogers Park neighborhood into this like little small town where they just know everyone. They go to all these coffee shops. It was so lovely and the weather was nice.
And there was a lake that you could walk to. I know that's very basic fact. And everyone seemed happy
And they must
and artistic.
and they
but not-
all must have gloves because there was no trash
Well,
anywhere.
actually, I kind of did some reading about why Chicago's so clean, and you want to know why? Because the alleys are in between. Like all the trash is pulled into the alleys.
Yeah.
Unlike in New York, unlike in Los Angeles, and so I do think that makes a huge difference.
Does New York not have alleys?
I think they're a lot narrower,
Okay.
and I think like trash just piles up on the streets, and it's really gross. I mean, I love New York, but I think that's kind of a big problem. I think it's got worse post-pandemic.
Well, I'll get your gloves and you can go to New York.
I
too
will
and
not be
start
doing
picking
that.
it up.
For some reason, I'd much rather pick up the trash outside of our
Because you know there's
street.
some rats that are probably larger than you are in New York that would
Exactly.
carry you off.
I do not want to be in
And you
the
become a
Grey
little-
Mouse Detective sequel. But yeah, so it's like, why do we choose to be here? And you know, I'm not
I
gonna
think
lie, I'm tempted.
Didn't
but-
people ask us in Chicago? And then I was like, I love Chicago, but I love entertainment. I love being around the entertainment hub of the
Yeah,
world.
you did say that.
And it's just very exciting and thrilling. And I feel like I'm always in the know and I'm amongst all these
people.
creatives. And I just love it. And I love all these mean people. I love it. I love going to coffee shops and not knowing who my barista is until you're somebody. I don't want to know your name.
Joe's turned into an evil agent. I feel like I kind of set it up where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad to be here. Maybe I'll move here someday. I like telling everybody that I
In
encountered
Chicago.
this. And so then Joe showed up and they started being like, oh, you're going to move to Chicago? And I was like, yeah, maybe. Then you said your inspirational spiel. And I was like, you're right. We love the rat race, but not the rats.
No.
We love the chase, but not the sore legs we get.
And we love the cocks, but not the roaches.
No.
Well, you know.
No. Don't put that in there. That's explicit.
Hey, you were the one swearing like a sailor.
Okay, but I have a thing. I don't understand why like certain swear words are a big deal anymore. Like if they're not a slur, I really just don't think it's a big deal.
This is a whole different topic that I was not expecting you to go on this podcast.
But you know what I'm saying? Like I hear someone curse unless they're doing it every other sentence. It doesn't really bother me.
Well, I'm sorry. Did I say it bothered me? Why are you taking like a stance right now?
I'm just curious if you agree with me, or if I'm on an island.
What the fuck you're on an island? You're now presenting a new topic.
Like I just like we label our music as explicit, and sure, if there's like a slur, I want to know, but if there's no slur,
And you're on an island.
Yeah, like I feel like nobody else really is
on
board
on
with
an island of opinions.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was literally transported to you being on an island.
I'm on an island with Patsy and milk. Anyway.
Yeah, swearing, it happens. People do it, some people don't.
I just don't think. But then, so I thought I was very blasé about swearing, but then someone.
Okay, can we let's get out of this. I feel like we're falling into a deep tunnel of something we don't need to explore.
All right.
I mean, I guess you can tie it back to like
This movie?
satanical 80s and the
Yeah, like there's this it's a moral panic, right?
yeah.
And I think we're living in a time of moral panic, but we can talk about that another time because it's a little heavy and intense.
Wow.
But just to be clear, the things that you think I'm talking about, I'm on the right side of it. Whatever that means to you. Okay, well.
So that's Maxine.
That's Maxine. This is Queer Cinema Catch Up.
Wait, we're not even gonna like catch up on
Oh, right.
the show's lives.
Oh my gosh.
Just because we're done in Chicago, you can't chat with your old roommate Joe. You're moving on.
I gotta go pick up some trash. So, yeah, what's going on?
Nothing.
How was your time in Chicago? What was your favorite part about Chicago, or your favorite memory?
Honestly, probably that Pequot's pizza.
Oh my gosh, it was so good.
We got
and I ate
deep
it.
dish the last day.
Okay, so we ate it. We're so much, like we were so full, and our friends like so kindly put it into to-go boxes for us, and we like brought it with us on the plane. Our flight back was so early, and they were at different times. I barely had any breakfast, and then I got on the plane. It was the 4.5-hour thing, and then I landed. My phone was almost dead, so I had to charge it in LAX, and I was like, well, might as well have breakfast. And I ate the pizza in LAX.
At the terminal.
Yeah. Any other favorite memories?
We went to so many wonderful coffee shops. Like it was just a trip of coffee. And our friends just like know all the best places to go. I, of course, went to my beloved Metropolis next to Loyola, where I used to go to all the time when I was an undergrad.
Aw.
And we went to a place called The Understudy. We went to a place called Pedestrian.
Yeah.
We went to a few other places. I don't remember the names because there were just so many.
CBC bagels.
CBC bagels. We did a plunge into Lake Michigan.
I almost forgot about that. Yeah.
Thursday morning.
Okay, you guys, it was 8 a.m. and we lined up along the lake. And I was thinking to myself, why am I doing this? I don't want to do it. It's so scary. And then I jumped in. Now, I don't know about you. We're plunged into darkness. And I was like, what if I like don't remember how to swim up?
I did have a moment of panic when I was underwater. I was like, why did I agree to this?
But then I like burst through the water and I was so elated. My brain was like electrified. And I would agree, seeing the fireworks on the lake was really cool. They were coming from all directions.
Oh my gosh. There were like explosions everywhere. You'd be walking, all of a sudden you'd realize someone was setting off a firework right next to you and it'd shoot up into the air to be the big fireworks.
And I also went to a Michelin star restaurant and I had the most amazing dessert. That was a sunflower parfait with bee pollen on it. And it was the most delicious thing I've ever had. Side note, this dessert pastry chef is in the final episode of The Bear. Anything else we should catch up on?
I'm about to leave once again for the Oregon coast on Friday. And so I'll be out of town all week.
So is it like a beach? Like, are you going to the beach?
Yeah.
Is it sandy or is it rocky?
It's sandy, but it'll be like overcast.
And it'll be like kind of like, so you like sit on the beach or just kind of like walk
it'll be
on
more
the
like
beach?
You'll go outside and you'll just be like wearing a sweatshirt. You'll be like, oh, and the wind will be blowing really hard. You're like, this is nice.
Will you swim?
No.
I'm intrigued. I don't think I've ever been to the Oregon coast.
It's beautiful.
Well, you're gonna be dog sitting.
It'll be so fun.
I'm so excited. I love dogs.
Must love dogs.
Must love dogs. After that, we're just kind of like cruising toward the end of summer.
Yeah.
And I don't really have any other big
That's
plans.
scary. Why did I just be like, yeah, summer's over? Feels like summer just started. Like, what the
Okay.
hell? We're already so far into July.
As somebody that worked in summer towns growing up, everybody always said that once you hit 4th of July, the summer's over.
Damn.
Which doesn't make sense because summer really has just started. But I guess they mean like the peak crowds and stuff come around that time. And then after that, it starts to like peter out.
Yeah.
Because kids go back to do like sports and
So on and so forth.
yeah.
Yeah, this is Queer Cinema Catch Up. I'm Joe.
And I'm Allison.
We are available on pretty much all the social media platforms, even if some of them are more active than others.
For now.
I'm sorry, do I need to give you your gloves so you can access the TikTok?
Yeah, I need my TikTok gloves. Preferably branded and heated.
Our email is queercinemacatchup@gmail.com.
Caroline, what do you think?
Yeah, what do you think of it so far?
I'm
Say it into both microphones.
Very intrigued. This made me very into movies in this little world. I liked it a lot. I'm like, oh, I should watch more movies.
Will, how's your experience been on this podcast so far?
It's been wonderful. Thank you.
This was QCC on location. Bye for now.